What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, your home for the 2020 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined by Daniel Starkand, and it's like as soon as you get your hopes up, Daniel, they're just here to give you a nice little gut punch. The Dodgers closed the gap to a game and a half 2 days ago. The Giants lose yesterday to close it to a game. You're thinking momentum's on your side, and then the Dodger offense lays a complete egg. They scored just one run, and that was with 2 outs in the ninth when the game was all but over. So they lose 3-1. They're now a game and a half back. The Giants about to start against the Braves themselves. So not a lot of positives in a game like this, Daniel.
Yeah. I guess the one positive, I just checked the score. The Giants and the Braves scored 2 in the first inning, so that's off to a 2-0 Braves lead. That's all we could root for at this point. Just hope the deficit stays the same. But as you said, that game was just not fun. Not a whole lot going offensively. Bueller, I'd say he was good, but not superb.
Yeah.
And on a night where Castillo is pitching as good as he was, Bueller had to be perfect to give the Dodgers a chance. So it was just not a fun night. No need to overreact. The season is not over. They're still playing really good baseball. They were playing really well coming into this. Castillo, he's the best pitcher the Reds have to offer. So if there was any night that the offense was going to shut down, I would have guessed, tonight. So hopefully they could turn it around. Take 2 out of 3. I don't know what it is about the Reds, but for some reason I feel like the Reds always have the Dodgers number. So it's frustrating, but hey, we got another one tomorrow. So got to have a short memory, got to bounce back and come out and swing the bats tomorrow, because you're not going to win many games when you're getting shut out or like you said, scoring one meaningless run, with 2 outs in the ninth inning.
Yeah. 14 games left for the Dodgers. As I said, currently a game and a half back of the Giants. As you have pointed out, as a couple of people in the comments have pointed out, the Giants are down 2-0 against the Braves. So there is some good news there. I guess the night could be headed in the right direction, although I'm never convinced that the Giants are actually going to lose a game until I see a final next to that. So we're going to get into this one. We're going to do player of the game here in just a moment. We have to pick a player of the game, preferably a Dodger. We'll see what we come up with. But again, the Dodgers lose 3-1 as a storyline. And just as a recap, I mean, there could not have been a bigger gap between how this game started and how this game finished. The very first batter, Mookie Betts, great eye on back-to-back pitches to get a 2-0 count. Castillo thinks he can groove a fastball to get back into the count himself. Mookie smashes it into right field, and you're thinking to yourself, hey, immediate runner in scoring position, first batter of the game. If you were the type of person, let's just say hypothetically, who bet against either team scoring in the first inning, that wasn't a great positive start for you. But if that was you and you were not a Dodger fan, it was good news, because Max Muncy comes up and looks completely lost at the plate. He strikes out. Trey Turner looks completely lost. He strikes out. Corey Seeger goes down 0-2, draws a walk. You start to get your hopes up. And then Justin Turner grounds out. So the Dodgers strand a leadoff double, and that was kind of their best opportunity in all reality against Luis Castillo, their best opportunity of the game. They strand another runner at second base on a Will Smith strikeout in the 4th inning, and then the Reds break through in the 5th. Kyle Farmer, former Dodger, he starts the inning off with this double. Barnhart, the catcher, singles him in 1-0. The Reds threaten. They put a runner on second with 2 outs, but Bueller strikes out Jonathan India to get out of that. So through 5 innings, it's 1-0. You look at the two pitchers, and you really felt like the Dodgers had an advantage, even though they were down 1-0. Castillo was through 5 with 2 hits, 2 walks, and 8 strikeouts. Bueller, 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts at the time. But the pitch count was a massive difference. I believe Bueller was something like 30 pitches less than Castillo at the time. The Dodgers come out in the 6th, look like they might get something going. Again, Trey Turner, slow grounder up the middle for a base hit. Corey Seager shatters the tip of his bat and hits a ball to third base. He gets an infield single. So now we got first and second and 1 out. The same 2 guys. Yet again, Justin Turner flies out to left field. Will Smith pops out to right field. Through 6 innings, Castillo threw 102 pitches. And I'm rubbing my hands together and saying the Reds have the 4th worst bullpen in all of baseball, according to ERA. If they can just get Castillo out of this game. Unfortunately, it didn't matter, because Bueller comes back out in the 6th himself. Farmer again with a 2-out, 2-run double to put them ahead 3-0. Castillo comes back out in the 7th, and the Dodgers can't get anything going. They do have to go to the bullpen before that, but again, Matt Beatty stranded at second. Chris Taylor and Mookie Betts both put balls to the warning track. There's another ball to the warning track in the 8th inning, and then finally Matt Beatty singles, advances to Matt Beatty with an RBI single of Will Smith to cut the lead to 3-1 in the 9th, but that was it. So they strand a couple runners at second base. The runners in scoring position statistics were not in the Dodgers' favor. 1 for 9 tonight. And again, that one was the last of the game. So they were 0 for 8. They leave 8 guys on base. They strike out 12 times. Max Muncy had 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts himself. Not great offensively. And then on the pitching side, Walker Bueller finishes 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 1 inning for Knebel, scoreless, 1 inning for Gratterall, scoreless, although Gratterall's was a slightly less convincing scoreless inning. But again, I mean, let's start with the offense, and we can get to Walker Bueller here in just a second. And folks, if you've got thoughts on the offense, please leave those in the chat. Nomo Fomo didn't like Cody Bellinger's swing selection on the full count, saying he swung at ball fours twice, although with the way the umpire was calling it, who knows. Will had 2 3-pitch strikeouts. THP throws out there as well. Some concern about whether the Dodgers could hit Castillo, which would be a concern considering the Reds are in the wild card hunt as well. So what do you make of the offense? I mean, you go down the box score here, and I don't mean to be the one talking altogether here, but lots of not pretty numbers. Mookie Betts 1 for 4. Of course, the 1 was the first at bat. So after that, he's 0 for 3. Muncy 0 for 4. Trey Turner 1 for 4. Seeger 2 for 3. Justin Turner 0 for 4. He left guys on twice. Will Smith 0 for 3. He left guys on twice. Bellinger 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Matt Beatty 2 for 4. I'd love to hear the people that were arguing Matt Beatty shouldn't play over Cody Bellinger. But there you go. Walker Bueller 0 for 1. Chris Taylor 0 for 1. Albert Pujols 0 for 1. So 6 hits and 33 at bats with just 2 walks and 12 strikeouts. What'd you make of the Dodger offense tonight?
Well, before I get into that, I had some good news to report at the beginning of the show as far as the Braves-Giants score. I now have some bad news to report. 2 batters into the bottom of the first. It is now tied at 2. Brandon Belt hit a 2-run homer, so not fun.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's 2-2 in the first inning. Obviously, a lot of game left there. So let's focus on the Dodgers now. Like you said, just a bad offensive performances. And with a guy like Castillo, I know like the overall numbers aren't great if you look at the season he's having, but I think in the second half he's been a lot better. He's kind of back to his usual self. I don't know if I'd call him a true ace, but he's probably in that next tier that he's still really good and he's capable of dominating basically any lineup on any given night just because of how filthy his changeup is. The fastball, he was throwing 99, 100 tonight. So that's not easy to hit no matter who it is, especially when he's got that 92-mile-an-hour changeup. So when a guy has it going like that, you just kind of hope you could jump on him early, get a few runs early before he settles in. And unfortunately, the Dodgers weren't able to do that. Mookie gets it off to a good start, like you said, with the leadoff double. He went the other way. That was a great swing. And then after that, can't even get him to third, and that's unfortunate. You got your best guys up. You got Muncy, Trey Turner, and Corey Seager, who actually walked that inning. And I'd say he's the one guy who had a pretty solid night overall. I think he was on base 3 times. But I mean, you got to be able to get that run across when you have a leadoff double. You don't even need another hit to score a run. You just need a couple productive outs, and that gets the job done. But after that, he settled in, and when he settles in like that, you're not going to have much. I think they did a decent job of raising his pitch count. He did end up pitching in that 7th inning, but he was already over 100 pitches. Like you said, the Reds bullpen statistically is not very good. So you hope you see how filthy Castillo is. You just hope that you could get him out of there after 6 innings or whatever, and then take as many at bats as you can off the bullpen. But just overall, just a bad night offensively. You mentioned Cody Bellinger. I think he actually wasn't at his worst tonight. He hits that ball hard in the 9th inning. Like you said, he got screwed on that one call that he should have had a walk on. Yeah. So, I mean, what are you going to do? These nights happen, I guess. I hope it doesn't become a theme. I think something we've seen with this offense this season, it's either all or nothing, right? Like there will be a week where they look like the greatest offense of all time. And it's like, no one can beat us. We're unstoppable. Obviously, the Dodgers pitching has been great all year. So if we have this offense, no one's touching us. And then they'll have a week or whatever where they just look like a single A offense, and so that's a bit of a concern just because if they end up being in the wild card game, like which team are we going to get? There's no margin for error there. It would be a 1-game scenario. So they wouldn't be able to afford to come out and have a game like they had tonight in the wild card game. And you mentioned the Reds are firmly in the mix right now. So what we saw tonight, we might be seeing in October. It's very possible, and Castillo is, I think if the Reds had a preference, Castillo would be the guy they would go with, especially if they're playing the Dodgers after seeing how he pitched tonight. Obviously, you're going to do what you can to get that guy in that game. I know they might not have that luxury. There's like 5 teams vying for that wild card spot. It could come down to the final day, but it's definitely concerning to think that
Yeah.
we could see what we saw tonight in a wild card game. So hopefully it's a bit of a wake up call and they kind of come out with some more fire tomorrow. But yeah, just not not a good night.
Yeah, and I mean, to put it in perspective, this is the Dodgers, their 9th loss dating all the way back to August 6th. So they've been on quite a run for the Dodgers. You got to say that. Now, I will clean up one thing on Castillo. He has been, I would say he has been better in the second half. Not that he has been good. His ERA at the end of May was 7.22, and he got that as far down as 4.09. That was on August 4th. It has since jumped up since then. This was his first scoreless outing since July 17th. So he has not had a scoreless outing in the month of September. He did not have a scoreless outing in 6 starts in the month of August, and his last 2 starts in July also were not scoreless. Just his second scoreless outing dated back all the way to June 26th. So not good news there. It was the most strikeouts he had in a game going all the way back to May 18th. So this is a guy who's good. This is a guy who scares you on paper. But when you look at the actual performances that he has put together, it's a guy that the Dodgers should have been able to hit. One of the statistics they mentioned a number of times early on was that he is susceptible to giving up hits once runners on. He's not as good out of a stretch. You wouldn't know watching the Dodgers. Again, they were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position before Beatty had the RBI single in the 9th. Just an overall bad performance from the Dodger offense. Now, flipping over to the pitching side, Walker Bueller. You kind of mentioned not his best night. 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, 95 pitches, 72 of them for strikes, which is a remarkable number. His season ERA is now up to 2.39. So this is another, I believe, his 3rd game in a row in which his season ERA has increased. This is a guy that at one point you thought, hey, might be the Cy Young favorite. His ERA got down to as low as 2.02. His last 4 starts now, it has gone up each time. Again, Cy Young, he's still going to finish in the top 5 or 6, you would imagine, in the Cy Young voting. But just good, but not great, I think is a fair way to assess what you saw from Bueller tonight.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe fatigue. He might be a bit fatigued at this point in the season. He's almost at 200 innings now. He's 2nd in all of baseball in innings pitched. So that could be a factor. I definitely think since probably starting with that Giant start ago or whatever it was, he hasn't quite looked at himself for 3 starts in a row now. I think just because of how good he is, he could still kind of get away with not having his best stuff and still be able to get through 6 innings and only give up 3 runs. But overall, it just wasn't his best. There was some traffic, a lot of the night. And unfortunately, it was his old buddy Kyle Farmer, former Dodger, of course, who did most of the damage. He scored the first run and then drives in the other 2. It was 2 hits that scored the runs. So it's like, if I just make better pitches in those situations, I could have avoided it. But with that being said, I still think he was working, around traffic all night. He wasn't getting a ton of swing and misses. So hopefully, I mean, he hopefully he could kind of regain his form to finish out the season here. I know it's still Walker Bueller and we're not overly concerned. We still know when the lights are on the brightest, he's going to bring his best. But at the same time, he's never thrown this many innings before. So this is kind of uncharted territories, you know? So, I think with some off days coming up, hopefully they could get him an extra day. I know they didn't really push him tonight. He was at, what'd you say, 92, 93 pitches or whatever. He easily
95.
could have gone back 95, so he could have gone back for one more. Like Castillo, I think, was at 103, 104 pitches. They sent him back out for the 7th. But I think it's something we're seeing with the Dodgers is maybe they're not, limiting guys' innings by skipping their starts or whatever. But they're, recently guys have been throwing fewer pitches. Julio only threw like 83 pitches or whatever it was the other night. So I think that's what they're kind of doing to try and combat just the career high in innings for both those guys. But yeah, I mean, I think a month ago, Bueller was the odds-on favorite for the Cy Young. He's no longer that. It might be Max Scherzer. It might be Corbin Burns. Both those guys have been shoving as of late. But hopefully Bueller could get back to that level because obviously they're going to need him. He's been their best guy all year. Still good. At 6 innings, 3 earned runs, that's still a quality start by definition. But on a night like tonight, when the offense isn't doing anything, that's just not good enough to win.
Yeah, and you kind of hinted at this, and I think it's the big question. Robert Roca on YouTube pointing out Bueller's pitching is very concerning. Several outings that are not good. Are Are you worried about Walker Bueller? I mean, you mentioned the pitched count, you mentioned the innings. Obviously, I think this is his 4th straight start. They've kept him under 100 pitches, but the way he was pitching, you weren't going to leave him back out there after he gives up 2 more runs in the 6th inning.
Right.
The bullpen has been very good. You've got 5 starters now, albeit, Kershaw and Gonsolin probably not fully built up yet. But I mean, are you worried about Bueller? I think this is 13 earned runs he's allowed in his last 13 earned runs in his last 4 starts. Of course, he had the 1 3-inning 6 earned, but the 3 earned tonight, 2 earned on September 11th, and then 2 earned on August 31st. That's across 23 innings. So 13 earned runs in his last 23 innings. The strikeout numbers on those are not exactly encouraging either. 5 strikeouts, 1 strikeout, 5 strikeouts, 5 strikeouts, well below sort of where he was prior to that. So are you worried at all about where Walker Bueller is at this point in the season?
I'm a little concerned. I'm not going to lie. I think kind of what we've seen from Walker Bueller in the past is that his stuff is so good that maybe he doesn't have to have his best command to be successful. He could just outstuff guys, throwing 98, 99 miles an hour with a dirty slider. And he could get away with not necessarily hitting his spots.
Yeah.
And what we saw tonight, I think, was kind of the opposite. You mentioned the strike numbers. He threw a ton of strikes, but I don't think his stuff wasn't really good enough to get by guys. He was throwing 95, 96, which that's not really blowing anyone away the same way 98, 99 does. And his off-speed stuff didn't quite look as sharp. I think when we see him getting the swing and misses, that's kind of a way to tell how sharp his stuff is, because you can't really tell from the broadcast just on camera behind the pitcher or whatever. But he just didn't sharp. So yeah, I am a little concerned. Like I said, he's already at a career high in innings or close to it or whatever, and there's still a long way to go. Like, I know the regular season he's probably only going to make like probably 2 or 3 more starts, but then you got to account for a whole October run, so that's 5 or 6 more starts after that if all goes to plan and you make the World Series or whatever. So it is a little concerning. I wish there was a way to kind of limit him right now, but unfortunately you don't have that luxury. You're in a tight division race. Like you said, Kershaw and Gonsolin are still kind of getting built up, so it's not like you could just send those guys out there and count on getting 6, 7 innings or whatever. So they kind of need Bueller right now. So hopefully he could just kind of figure it out and get some life back on that arm. And I don't know if there's an easy way to do that without kind of just resting.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to look for a positive, I was looking up the exit velocities. Of the top 12 hardest hit balls tonight, just 2 came against Walker Bueller. So there's some encouraging news. Gratterall was responsible for just as many of those hard hit balls. He gave up 2 in his inning. And then the Dodgers had a bunch. I mean, Max Muncy had the hardest hit ball for the Dodgers. That was the only time he put the ball in play. The Dodgers 105 mile an hour ground out, 104 mile an hour ground out, 104 mile an hour fly out, 102 mile an hour ground out, 102 mile an hour line out. And then you had the Mookie Betts double, and then it was fly out. So lots of hard hit outs for the Dodgers.
Yeah, a lot of warning track power.
The warning track stuff was mind-boggling to me. Just 3 in basically an inning and a half, which was remarkable. Yeah. So again, all in all, this is on the offense. If you get pitchers that can give up 3 earned runs, then this is on the offense. Has got to do better. Some people in the chat were mentioning it was something I was actually thinking about. The off day, like, does that impact? Like, do you feel I would have to go back and look to see if there's a pattern about how the Dodgers have performed off of off days. But I was actually thinking today, again, this is a very unformed theory that I'm just working with live and processing out loud. But we've talked about how much the Dodger offenses struggle, and we've also talked about how intentional the Dodgers have been at giving guys off days. I wonder if the off days have been messing with the offensive rhythm. Do you think there's anything to that? Again, I'd have to look at the numbers, but I'm just spitballing here.
I mean, it's definitely possible. I think it all kind of just depends on like how a team is going. Like if you've lost like 3 or 4 straight, then like you're excited for that off day, and obviously rest is good no matter what, especially when you're this late in the season. They've played 140 something games over the last few months. Anytime you could get a day off, that's good. But I definitely think there's something to it where when you're playing well, and the Dodgers, what did they have, won like 7 straight or something? I don't remember exactly how many it was,
6,
but they came in 6 straight. They came in playing well. So yeah, I definitely think you want to kind of keep playing when you're going that well. You want to kind of ride that wave, keep that momentum going. But you don't choose the schedule, and they're gonna have more off days coming up. They got one coming up this Monday. So if that is an issue, you better get over it quick, because it's not an excuse, you
Yeah,
know.
so here you go. I'll throw some off day numbers at you. Dating back to August 1st, that's as far as I'm looking. They had an off day on August 2nd. They came back on August 3rd and they lost 3-0. They had an off day on August 5th. They came back and lost 4-3 in 10 innings on August 6th. They had another off day on August 9th, came back to win 5-0 on the next day. They had an off day on, where was it? They had an off day on August 23rd. They came back to win 5-2 in that one. They had an off day on September 2nd. They lost 3-2 in 11 innings to the Giants after that. And then today was their next, and they lose 3-1. So I think that was 6 games right there. They lost 4 out of the 6, and the 2 wins, they scored 5 runs apiece. So, there's probably not enough there to make a complete argument about. If you wanted to dig in the numbers, and maybe I will before Monday's show, to look at like how does a guy like Will Smith perform after getting a day off? How does these guys that have been getting consistent days off, is it messing with the rhythm? Are they coming back and hitting well on the day off? Tough to see there. So let's get into player of the game while we're here, and then we can get into some mailbag questions if people have it. I know we got a good one on Twitter earlier about the how the rotation shakes out for the rest of the season, looking ahead to potentially having to play in a playoff game for the division, a play-in game in the wild card, whatever it might be. I'm looking into that. But player of the game, you mentioned a couple of guys who reached base, so I'll let you go first. Who would you have as your player of the game?
Yeah, and just so I don't forget, after player of the game, before we do questions, I got a Gavin Lux update here, so I'll read that after we do player of the game. I'm gonna go with Corey Seager. I mentioned he got on base 3 times out of 4 tonight. Honestly, the real player of the game was a former Dodger, Kyle Farmer. But we only do Dodgers here, so I'll go with Corey Seager. He's been swinging the bat really well, which is great to see. So yeah, the options, it's pretty slim options here.
Yeah, only 2 guys reached at least 2 times. The second is the guy that I'll give a shout out to, and that's Matt Beatty, 2 for 4. Does get the 1 RBI in the game. So shout out to Matt Beatty. Again, I mean, like, look, the bar is so low for what we're looking at out of the 7th and the 8th. But there was one at bat. It was his first hit that to me was just like the exemplification of why I have become pro Matt Beatty in the conversation about Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger strikes out right in front of him. He works a 3-0 count and then just swings through 3 straight pitches to strike out. And then Beatty comes up, I believe gets into a 2-strike count himself, but then he tightens up his swing and he just slaps the ball into left field through the hole. Like, it's simple things like the ability to make contact, the ability to hit it, to barrel up the ball, even if it's not like, 100-mile-an-hour exit velocity, but just to hit it on a line. It's not an infield pop-up, and it's not a strikeout. So at least it was a competitive at bat. He ends up getting a single. He comes up in the 9th, gets another single. So he's 2 for 4. I believe he was 0 for 4 or 0 for 5 coming into this one since getting called up. But again, the bar is so low because the guy in front of him was 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. So Beatty and Seeger, I think, are the obvious choices. Seeger obviously also made a great defensive play, jumping up to catch a ball at shortstop, using all, 6'5" or something like that, using the entirety of his length there. Trey Turner had a nice play at second base. Cody Bellinger did have a nice defensive play in center field as well. Walker Bueller kick save. That was a nice little play on the mound. So some good defense from the Dodgers, but doesn't matter because if you can't score, none of that matters. So looking ahead, yes, people pointing out Matt Beatty cannot play center field. This is accurate. Nobody's advocating for Matt Beatty to play center field. Mookie Betts could play center field. Chris Taylor could play center field. We got lots of options. Deborah saying hopefully AJ Pollock's still on fire and comes back next weekend. Gavin Lux, who you're going to give an update to here in just a second, is another guy that could play the outfield. Obviously, not a guy you'd put in center field. Definitely not a guy in center field based on the way he's played left field. But it's been an exciting left field, at least when Gavin Lux is in. So let's get to that update. Matt Beatty was not supposed to be in the lineup today. Gavin Lux is a late scratch with some sort of right forearm injury. So what have you heard from Twitter or Dave Roberts' post-game press conference maybe?
Yeah. So this is from our guy, Matt Moreno. He tweeted this 15 minutes ago. Dave Roberts said Gavin Lux was hit by a pitch from a machine in the right forearm. X-rays during the game came back negative. He won't play tomorrow, but might return to the lineup on Sunday.
How the hell do you get hit by a pitch from a freaking machine?
Yeah, that's not a way you want to get hurt. Especially, Gavin Lux, since he's come back up, he's been swinging the bat really well. You talked about how we don't need a ton of production from that 7-8 hole. We'll
It's a
take
low
anything.
bar.
Well, Gavin Lux, he's been
Yep.
given some pretty legit production since he came back. In fact, today was the first time that they had the same lineup 3 days in a row. And that's partly because of how well Gavin Lux was playing. Obviously, it didn't end up happening because he gets
Yeah.
scratched like 10 minutes before the game or whatever, and Matt Beatty's in there. But, I guess it's good news that x-rays came back negative. It's unfortunate he'll be out of the lineup again tomorrow, but hopefully he could get back in there Sunday because, like you said, production from the bottom of the lineup, that's a guy who Gavin Lux, I mean, going back to his days in the minors, he's a streaky guy. When
Yeah.
he gets hot, he gets hot. And I'm not going to say he's hot yet, but since he got called up, he was starting to heat up and he's starting to look pretty good. So hopefully he could get back in there soon because we need the offense right now.
How do you? I mean, how do you get hit by a pitching machine? Like, what you work in the inside part of the plate or something?
Yeah, I guess so, because usually those pitching machines are pretty consistent. You set it up where you want,
Right.
and it's not just gonna come hit you when you're expecting it down the middle. So I have no clue how that happens, but it's very unfortunate timing. I'll say that.
Yeah, Lux coming into this 7 for his last 15. He's played in his last 5 games. He's had 4 multi-hit, or excuse me, his last 6 games. He's got 4. Oh gosh, I'm butchering this. In his last 5 games, he has 3 multi-hit games. In those ones. So add in a couple walks. So altogether, since coming back, he's 7 for 17 with 3 walks, a double, just 4 strikeouts. Also has a hit by pitch in there. So 3 RBIs as well and 4 runs. So hard to argue with that. I don't understand why Cody Bellinger is still playing over Matt Beatty unless the explanation is they don't want Mookie in center. I mean, if that has to be the only explanation I can think of. Because, again, Beatty proved once again that he is a competent, average major league hitter, which is better than what they have. So let's get to some mailbag questions. If folks joining us via YouTube, via Facebook, via Twitter, we see you in our chat. We appreciate you joining us, even after a tough 3-1 loss to the Reds tonight. But if you've got any questions, let us know. I'll go to the one we received on Twitter. And I apologize, I don't know exactly who sent it. I'd have to go back and look. But it was a question about how the Dodger rotation sets up from here on out. As I said, the Dodgers have 14 games remaining after tonight. They've got 2 more in Cincinnati, both of those morning games, 11 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. They have an off day, then they go straight to Colorado, straight to Arizona, then another off day before coming home for 3 against the Padres and 3 against the Brewers. The way that it's setting up right now is really fascinating because the ESPN is only projecting their rotation out, let's see, 3, 5, 8 days from now. But if you just sort of filter the same thing through, you would have, I believe Walker Bueller would be scheduled to pitch on the very last day of the season, followed by Max Scherzer would be available to pitch the day after the last day of the season. Of course, if you desperately needed to do something, I suppose you could probably speed that up slightly with one of the off days and get Bueller and Scherzer to pitch the last 2 days of the season. With the off days, you could also move people up, and so maybe like Gonsolin skips a turn or maybe Kershaw skips a turn if you wanted to line it up. So looking at that, I mean, it's a lot of guesswork right now, but I would imagine the fact that it currently sets up to have Bueller on the last day and Scherzer on the day after that, that feels like exactly how you would want things to play out. Because I imagine between the last day of the season and the first day of the NLDS, should the Dodgers get there, that might be enough time to make a start, right?
Yeah, it would be. Like you said, I think that's the perfect way to line it up. Obviously, you can't see into the future. You don't know what things are going to look like 2 weeks from now. But I mean, you have it basically so you could go any direction. If that last regular season game is important, well, you have Walker Bueller going. If it's not important, like let's say you're either up a couple games or down a couple games, and you're going to be in the wild card game or you're going to be in the NLDS, then you could decide to hold him out or whatever if you want, or have him start a shortened game or whatever. And then you have Max Scherzer ready to go for the wild card game or game 1 or whatever. So I think they're kind of setting it up so they could kind of go a number of different directions. You mentioned there's a few off days in there, so that could change some things depending on how they decide to do things. We've already seen this Sunday Clayton Kershaw is starting, but we now know that Tony Gonsolin is coming in after him, kind of as a piggyback. So that moved everyone else up a day, but they were able to do that because they're off on Monday. So yeah, I think they're kind of lining it up so they could kind of get to the end and see what they need or whatever. But I mean, honestly, with this rotation, you can't really go wrong either way. Like if it came down to it and we had Julio, starting game 1 or whatever, like if that's the worst case scenario, like that's still pretty good, So with these guys, you can't go wrong, but it's definitely ideal to have it lined up so that Scherzer is set up for that potential wild card game, because he's not only the best guy on the Dodgers right now, he's been the best pitcher in baseball since he came over to LA. So you definitely want him for that game if you're in that game, and if not, you have him ready for game 1. So it's perfect.
Yeah, Andrew Savage was the one who submitted that on Twitter. So Andrew, we appreciate that one. Yeah, it's interesting, as you pointed out, and a couple people pointed out in the chat, the decision to piggyback Gonsolin and Kershaw, which I suppose makes sense because between the two of them, you're sort of hoping you can get like 7 to 8 innings out of the two of them, which would be okay. I mean, the flip side is your bullpen will be well rested leading into that, theoretically. So I suppose anytime you can get the bullpen a little bit of a rest, especially with the day off the next day, then you feel good about that. So we'll see how that one shakes out. But again, that is the way that you want to set it up, because then if you get to the last game of the season and it's not important because you've already either clinched the division or lost the division or whatever, then you just rest Bueller as well. And you have both guys available potentially on that last day. So good stuff there from the Dodgers. Let's get to some questions. There's one question here from THP. This is an interesting one. Do you feel a stronger need to re-sign Corey Seager now since how good he's been coming off the IL versus how Bellinger, Taylor, Muncy, and Turner have been hitting since the start of August? It's interesting because we've had a lot of the Trey Turner versus Corey Seager. Who would you rather re-sign? Obviously, in a perfect world, you re-sign both of them. But we know we don't live in a perfect world, so it's possible that that's not really an option. My answer to this would be very simple in that nobody has doubted how good Corey Seager has been. This has never been a conversation of like, oh, well, he's having a down year, so blah, blah, blah. It's just a matter of Trey Turner is one of the best players in the game. So is Corey Seager. One of the two has a far better track record health-wise, and you could argue Trey Turner is probably a better defender than Corey Seager, although some people would debate that. So I'm imagining you're in the same boat, that Corey Seager's performance is not surprising and therefore would not change the narrative at all for you as far as who you would choose if you had to choose one of the two.
Exactly, you nailed it. With Corey Seager, no one doubts the talent. It's all about his health. Do you want to give that 8-year, $250 million deal or whatever to a guy with his injury history? That's a question mark. Also, I mean, it's also a two-way street. Like Corey Seager is going to get to decide where he wants to go. He's going to be getting offers from other teams. Like I think the Dodgers are going to be in the mix, but if another team comes out with a monster offer, do you want to match that? I don't know. And with Seager, it's what position is he going to play? Like, does he want to stay at shortstop? Like, are you going to sign him to a long-term deal with him expecting to play shortstop, or is he comfortable moving over to third or first or whatever so Trey could play shortstop? So there's a lot of factors. We'll figure all that out after the season this winter, of course. But I think the main thing here is that it's just Corey Seager is healthy and playing well right now. And that's what the Dodgers need. This offense is kind of come and go, and he's kind of been pretty consistent all along. So that's been huge.
Yeah. And someone pointing out, well, what is Trey Turner's injury history? He played 162 games in 2018, 122 in 2019, played 59 of 60 in 2020, and has played 133. So if you go back further than that, 98 games in 2017, 73 in 2016, and not being a Nationals fan, I don't know at which point in, maybe 2016, I don't know if that was an injury or if he had been called up, but
I know one of those years he was hit by a pitch and broke his wrist, kind of similar to what Seager had this year. So that he missed a lot of games for that, but that's also not like a huge thing of concern. That was kind of just like a fluke accident getting hit by a pitch,
Yeah, and you look at the last 4 seasons, this is a guy who's has had good health, has basically been playing, most of the games, depending on what the options were. You go to Corey Seager, he played 157 in 2016, 145 in 2017. He missed all but 26 games in 2018. He missed 28 games in 2019, and then was healthy last year, and then just 80 games played this year. So again, I mean, I should clarify, there maybe isn't as huge of a gap between the two. As you pointed out, I think if you look at what the injuries were, Corey Seager's tend to be the type where it just, he just can't stay healthy. It's not so much bad luck as he got hit by a pitch, although sometimes it has been that. But it's other stuff as well. The back is concerning. I mean, that's not the type of injury that you want to deal with as well. So,
and he's had hip surgery. He's had Tommy John surgery. He's had hamstring issues. So those are all not the best injuries, especially when it's a 6'4", 6'5" shortstop who's, no longer a spring chicken. He's still really young, but he's not the young guy that he was when he was first coming up, that could just get out of bed and be
Totally.
totally fine. Like, obviously, as you get older, you need to stretch more. You need to do all these different things, which I'm not saying he's not doing, but the injuries he's had, like a hip and a back and a
Yeah.
hamstring, like those become more concerning as you get older.
Yeah, and I think the point you make is a big one when you're debating those two is position. I
Right.
think Corey Seager is a solid defensive shortstop. I mean, some people might try to argue that he's better than solid. I probably wouldn't. I think he's fine. Like, I don't think he's terrible, but I don't, but it's obviously not going to be trending in the right direction. Most people have, since basically he was a prospect, have said this is a guy that probably is going to end up at third. But
Right.
by all accounts, he has not been willing to go to third base. So that would be a mandatory before you sign him to like an 8-year deal is what's the plan here? Like, we'd love to move
Yeah.
you over to third and probably as soon as next season when the DH comes in because Trey Turner's still under contract. So that would be a big thing for Seager. And who knows? I mean, him and Trey Turner, by all accounts, seem to get along great. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
it's any negativity. It would just be a matter of he'd have to figure out what his priorities are. Is it money? Is it something else? Would be the hard part to figure out. So,
And I think a good example of that is what we saw with Manny Machado a couple
yeah,
years ago. Like, he maintained that he wanted to play shortstop all along, and it makes sense when you're going into free agency, just because typically shortstops get more money than any other position, just because it's the most important position. But once San Diego is willing to throw around 300 million, which is shortstop money, then I'm sure you're fine moving over to the third base once you're locked up with that big long-term deal.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Derek saying Lindor got 340 million. Will Corey ask for the same or for more? What do you think? I mean,
Probably,
ask for is a different. Let's say
yeah.
does he get?
I think Lindor got lucky that he cashed in at the perfect time with the perfect organization that was willing to pay him that. Like, he kind of got Mookie Betts money, and I don't think Lindor's ever been on Mookie's level. And I don't think Corey's on that level either. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure he'll go that high. But hey, Scott Boras is his agent. So I'll tell you right now, it ain't going to be cheap, whatever it is.
Yeah, at least the first number is not going to be cheap.
Yeah.
Let's look ahead to the weekend, and then we'll call it good here. Two more games against the Reds. Max Scherzer on the mound versus Sonny Gray tomorrow. Kershaw versus Wade Miley on Sunday. Those are two games. I mean, the Dodgers were huge favorites tonight with Bueller versus Castillo, which was by far the closest as far as the gap between the two pitchers that you would imagine. And I think the Reds were plus 150 to win this game. Scherzer versus Gray, Kershaw versus Miley. A little weird with the 11:10 a.m. start tomorrow and the 10:10 a.m. start West Coast times on Sunday because they're playing back east. But how do you feel about those two matchups, and how confident are you that the Dodgers can get 2 wins?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely feeling good about tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
Like, the Dodgers haven't lost a single game that Scherzer's pitched in. I know Sonny Gray's good, but I don't think he's not outstanding or anything. Like, he's just a solid number 2, number 3 starter. I think they should be able to get to him a lot better than they did Castillo today. So I feel pretty good about tomorrow. Sunday, we'll see. Kershaw looked good in his first game back. I think he pitched into the 5th inning, which I think was the ultimate positive sign. So hopefully he could, maybe do that again. That'd be good. He's got Gonsolin coming back in after him, or coming in the game after him. So I'd say length isn't a huge
yeah,
concern, but I think with Kershaw, we're still kind of watching to see more for health than effectiveness at this point. Like, the main thing is let's come out of this healthy and not not have any setbacks at this point in the season. Wade Miley's having a
yeah,
great year, and I feel like he's a guy who always pitches well against the Dodgers, which is annoying because it's not the same as Castillo. Like, when you watch Castillo pitch, like, you could at least
yeah.
understand like why
He's
guys
throwing
aren't hitting
100.
his. Yeah, he's throwing 100 with like a filthy changeup. Like, yes, his numbers aren't great, and they probably should have hit him. But like, when you're watching it, you could at least like understand a little bit why they're struggling. With Wade Miley, he's just up there throwing like 88, 89, and you're like, come on, like, we really should be
Yeah.
hitting this guy. So hopefully we could avoid that frustration and they could come out and hit him. But I mean, I like our chances in both games. If you could come out of this series taking 2 out of 3, I would have taken that before the series started. Obviously, definitely
Yeah.
would take it now after they dropped the first one. But honestly, you kind of have to take the next 2 just because, we don't know. We'll see what happens with the Giants, but we're expecting them to probably take 2 out of 3 as
Yeah.
well. And you don't really want to have that deficit grow any larger at this
Yeah, and the
point.
Braves are the team that the Giants are matched up against that you want to be able to game ground. This is probably the best team
Yeah.
that the Padres are going to play from here, or excuse me, the Giants are going to play from here on out. And so you'd like to see that. Yeah, looking into the numbers on Gray and Miley, it is interesting because Castillo actually has the worst numbers of the bunch this season. Gray has allowed 2 earned runs in all 3 of his last starts, but that's good for a 3.1 ERA. in the month of September. And in the month of August, it was even better, an ERA of 2.93. So dating back over his last 8 starts, just 11 earned runs. So a good run for Sonny Gray there. Again, who knows? Obviously with Scherzer on the mound, you expect positive things. Gray did face the Dodgers earlier this season. The Dodgers lost 11-0. He went 5 2/3 with 11 strikeouts. So there you go. Excuse me. The Dodgers won that game 8-0. It was my mistake. The Dodgers won that game 8-0. He allowed 2 earned runs, but had 11 strikeouts in 5 2/3. And then Miley, to your point, has a 3.09 ERA on the season. But if you want to be optimistic, he's allowed 5 earned runs in 2 of his last 3 starts, an ERA of almost 6.5, dating back to the beginning of the month. He has not faced the Dodgers at any point this season, although, it is historically a guy that you feel like is just going to beat the Dodgers for no reason. So we'll see what the Dodgers can do in that one. But, who knows? Here's a question from Derek. Derek asks, which would you prefer? The Dodgers get one key player hurt out for the remainder of the playoffs, but they win the division? Or would you rather have everybody healthy but have to play in the wild card game? That's a fantastic question.
Could we choose Cody Bellinger?
Did Cody Bellinger count as a key player? Daniel said it, not me, just for the record. This one, I don't know if this is going to surprise you. I would rather lose a guy and clinch the division. I just think the wild card game sucks that much.
I'm the opposite of that. I think if they're fully healthy, yes, like you said, the wild card game, who knows? But if you do survive that game, then you're in the same spot you are if you win the division and you have everyone healthy. So unless I could choose Cody Bellinger, I think I'd stick with keeping everyone healthy and let's just go win that wild card game.
Yeah, it's a great question. But I just think I would hate the wild card game so much that if you just said like, hey, Justin Turner's out for the playoffs, because I'm assuming when you say key player, it's going to be one of the top 5 or 6 guys in the order.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, obviously it hurts your chances to win the World Series, but part of it's like, if AJ Pollock is back healthy and the way Lux and Beatty and Taylor, you just have enough guys that you sort of trust and you just say, hey, we're just going to ride, what might be one of the best pitching staffs in playoff history if the Dodgers can actually make it to the real playoffs, plus a bullpen that's one of the best in baseball. I think I'd take my chances there. I don't know. Some people are saying, it depends who. Like if Corey Seager is the player, then maybe we don't want that, the reigning MVP. Right. Obviously, Trey Turner, Mookie Betts would be at the top of that list. Corey Seager probably 3rd, Max Muncy 4th, Justin Turner 5th. Is that
Will Smith's got to be higher?
Will Smith.
If Will Smith is out,
then gosh, don't even let my mind wander there.
And they don't even have Keibert Ruiz to call up, so I don't even know who they would have as a backup if Will Smith got hurt.
Gosh, that's a terrifying thought. Somebody go Google who the Oklahoma City catcher is right now. It's not Cartaya yet, that's for sure.
No.
And obviously pitching wise, I wouldn't mess with any of my 4 starting pitchers. No. I wouldn't want to do that. Although I do like Gonsolin, so who knows. But yeah, great question there. That's a fun one to ask. So, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to end this one a little bit early, 3-1. This is a night that we want to flush and just forget about it, flush it, and
not a whole
move
lot
on. Not a whole lot to talk about. Here's some exciting news. We've going to switch up our plan and our schedule for the Laura says Jeff just had a minor stroke. That's true. Klaus, Austin Barnes. I know. Don't even make me think about it. I might not want to make the playoffs if I have to watch Austin Barnes be the starter every game.
Hey, playoff Barnesy.
Yeah, not interested. Yep, still thinking about it. Still not interested. But yes, so here's the plan moving forward. Normally, Daniel and I have been recording shows on Monday and posting those. With just a couple weeks left in the season, we are actually going to start going live on Monday nights and then doing a live post-game show later in the week as well. Daniel is out for this first one because he's got some stuff with Lakers Nation, which, by the way, check out Lakers Nation. Great stuff over there. Daniel's the editor of that site. So Matt Moreno and I will be here on Monday night doing a live show. Obviously, coming off of the series that the Dodgers have, we'll be previewing the at Rockies and at Diamondbacks series, which you look at 6 games in 7 days, and you've got to think that's got to be 6 wins.
Win all of those.
Yeah. Before you head into the Padres and then the Brewers. So the schedule does set up fairly nicely for the Dodgers if they can take these next 2, and then you've got 6 against Colorado and Arizona, although those are road games, and then 3 at home against the Padres, who knows what their pitching staff will look like at that point. So the point being, we will be doing a live show previewing the week ahead on Monday rather than our normally scheduled Dodger Heads. Then we'll do a live post-game show, and then Daniel and I will be back live the following Monday as well. That'll be another off day. So the Dodgers don't play either of the next 2 Mondays. And then we'll preview the last week of the series as well. And then, I'm imagining the Monday after that, we know we're going to have something to talk about. Would the wild card game be the day after the season ends, or is there a day off in between?
It would be. So the wild card games would be Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm not sure which days the AL and which days the NL, but you'd get at least one off day, which would be nice.
Okay, so there you go. So basically, Abe wants to know why I don't like Austin Barnes. Abe, that's a conversation for another show. Ask me that question another time.
Well, just look up the statistics.
Just Google Austin Barnes. Yeah, there you go. Maybe just look up the old batting line. Fangraphs is your friend on that one. WRC plus 100 is league average. Okay, there you go. That's why I don't like Austin Barnes. His is below 100, in case you're curious on where that one falls. But yes, so it's
also not that we hate Austin Barnes. It's just the drop off from Will Smith
100%.
to him is very significant.
Thank you for clarifying. I was actually very pro Austin Barnes. His first year up, he had an on base of like 400. I was all in. I was like, Austin Barnes is the guy. He should be playing more. And then, unfortunately, that was not the real Austin Barnes. History has told us. So the next 3 Mondays we will be live. This Monday will be Matt and I. The next 2 after that, likely Daniel and I, maybe Matt as well, on a 3-person show. We may get Justin Lorber in there as well. We'll also be doing live post games at the end of weeks, one of those Thursday, Friday, Saturday type games. So stay tuned for that. As always, we appreciate you. If you've got friends that are Dodger fans, get them in. We got 2 weeks left in the season, a late push to hopefully win the division, hopefully coast into the NLDS, and then send the best pitching staff in playoff history to the mound. We'll see what happens. The lineup would be up there as well. But thank you for joining us. A tough loss for the Dodgers. They lose 3-1 to the Reds, but they're only a game and a half back. The season is not over. That's Daniel Starkand. I'm Jeff Spiegel. This is for Dodger Blue, your home for the 2020 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. Check out DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958, everywhere on social media. Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you Monday.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.